ADBN TV, YouTube, ADBN TV. Keep visiting our website on www.adbntv.com. Watch us live anytime, anywhere. ADBN TV, a part of you.
In a world constantly in flux, news moves fast, stories collide, opinions swirl. Who helps you make sense of it all?
It's me, ADBN, of course. Every week, I take you beyond the headlines, cutting through the maze, asking the tough questions, and spotlighting the stories shaping our world.
From politics to culture, business to global affairs, community pulse to everything that defines human existence, News Eddies brings you the currents that matter. Stay informed, stay ahead.
Join me, ADBN, for News Eddies, 9 p.m. every Sunday on ADBN TV.
ADBN, Advocate Broadcasting Network.
Hi, it's News Eddies, your weekly rendezvous with the news community. Thanks for being a part of the pulse. On the program this week, the Middle East is back in the spotlight. Israel and the United States strike Iran, sparking a shift in the global rhythm of life. This edition, dedicated to the showdown, takes you inside the drama from every angle. First up, a rapid-fire recap of last week's biggest headlines. The enforcement of Federal Airports Authority of Nigeria's cashless policy caused gridlock at Abuja and Lagos airports as both local and international travelers had to abandon their vehicles and trek to the terminals to avoid missing their flights. Motorists insist they were not adequately sensitized, though FAN launched the policy since September 2025. APC held wards, local governments and state congresses nationwide. Candidates emerged by consensus in peaceful elections. The party has instructed that the newly elected executives be inaugurated in line with the relevant provisions of the party's constitution. The DSS has arrested security operatives associated with former Governor El Rufai's 12 February breach of protocol at Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport. The arrest followed a joint investigation by the Department of State Services, DSS, the Nigeria Immigration Service, NIS, the Nigeria Customs Service, and the Federal Ministry of Aviation into the events. Shiite protests erupted in Abuja, Kano, and some other northern states in response to the Iran, Israel, and U.S. Middle East crisis. The U.S. and Israel are currently carrying out major bombardments against Iran in an offensive that started on the 28th of February after they bombed the residence of the Supreme Leader of Iran, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, and killed him alongside other top Iranian leaders. The Iran-US-Israel conflict has escalated with more than 1,000 persons reportedly killed. Explosions have been reported across Iran, and Israel says it is carrying out new attacks on Tehran. The United States and Israel continue to bombard Iran, killing at least 1,230 people since Saturday, as Israeli forces also hammer Lebanon. That's a summary of some of the major headlines of last week. Now to the heart of the matter. The United States, Israel, and Iran share a long, turbulent history, one that traces back to 1979. Until then, Iran was ruled by Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, an authoritarian monarch sustained by strong U.S. support. That year, the Iranian Revolution swept him from power, ushering in Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini. He transformed Iran from a monarchy to a republic, abandoning the Shah's pro-Western stance and declaring the United States an enemy. After Khomeini died in 1989, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei assumed the spiritual leadership of Iran. It was under his watch that tensions deepened, culminating in the Middle East crisis, which erupted on the 28th of February 2026, when the US and Israel launched coordinated strikes on the country's military and nuclear facilities, an offensive which consumed him. Since then, Iran has retaliated with missile and drone attacks across Israel and US bases, sparking regional escalation involving Gulf states and inducing divergent reactions across the world. Joining me to put in perspective the eddies of the showdown for easy understanding are international relations expert Dr. Matthew Adoyi Omale and a security expert, Dr. David Okororo. Thank you very much for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me.
Now, before we immerse ourselves in the essentials, shall we review the timeline of events since the first missile was fired? 28 February 2026, US and Israel launched strikes on Iran using Tomahawk missiles, HIMARS, and Israel Air Power. Explosions reported in Tehran. Israel confirms its involvement. Iran vows retaliation, activating the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. 29 February to 1st March 2026, Iran responds with missile and drone attacks targeting Israel and US bases in Iran and the Gulf. Airstrikes reported in Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, UAE, and Iraq. Civilian casualties begin to mount across the region. 2nd March, Donald Trump confirms US involvement in what he called major combat operations. He called on Iranians to rise up against their leadership. Regional governments issue emergency alerts as fighting spreads. 3rd March, explosions in Dubai and Abu Dhabi links to Iranian drone activity. Air raid siren sounds in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. Report of Ali Khamenei's death circulates, heightening instability. And 4th or 5th March 2026, US sinks an Iranian warship in the Indian Ocean. Iran retaliates with intensified missile strikes on Israel. IRGC threatens complete destruction of the region's military and economic infrastructure. Neighboring countries brace for spillover in the conflicts. That was the timeline. Now, the combined US attack on Iran was not a spontaneous action. It was a culmination of tensions. Could you briefly recap the festering issues? Let me start with you.
All right. The Middle East has remained a flashpoint, a crisis flashpoint in global politics for a very long time. Since the recognition of the State of Israel after the Second World War, there have been great tension in the Middle East, orchestrated by the rejection of the creation of the State of Israel by the majority of the Arab nation at that time. And the emergence of Iran as a rival power within that region further add to the insecurity and instability in the Middle East region. What we are witnessing today is a culmination of years of bitterness, rivalry between Iran and Israel on one side and between Iran and the USA on the other. So Iran has consistently been opposed to the setting up of the State of Israel and been opposed to the dominance of Israel as a power within the Middle East. And that is why it continued to sponsor proxies, it continued to sponsor a lot of attacks on fellow Arab or Arab countries that are sympathetic to America and Israel. And that is why you see during this crisis, they have also been attacking Saudi Arabia, where there are military bases of the US. So in a nutshell, this current conflict that we are witnessing have been going on for quite some time. You will recollect that the International Atomic Agency has been pressurizing Iran to dismantle its nuclear program, because Iran believes that possessing nuclear weapon will make them a regional power broker within the Middle East. And it has been trying as much as possible to enrich uranium and also to develop ballistic missiles and other weapons of mass destruction, which the US, Israel, and the rest of the West have been opposed to. So it has been a long-drawn battle, which is culminating in what we are seeing today.
One of the reasons advanced for this coordinated attack was that Iran was acquiring nuclear capability. And it's not been confirmed, although it is agreed that it has the technical abilities to do so. So how plausible or justifiable is the attack based on that consideration? Let me bring Dr. Akoro in here.
Well, thank you for having me. I was talking earlier about your studio. It's beautiful.
Thank you very much.
Right. Now back to the issue of the ongoing war, if you like, in the Middle East. Justification depends on who you are talking to. To the Israeli, there's no way Israel could have sat back to allow Iran to develop a nuclear capability, because then the Iranians will be able to achieve their what seems to be their ultimate national security objective of taking out Israel, completely wiping out Israel. So it would have been what am I going to use now for Israel to sit back and allow Iran to develop nuclear capability? For the US have friends. Most of the countries, many of the countries in the Middle East are friends to the US. Now, the desire, or not just the desire, the effort, because Iran was committed to developing nuclear capability. I mean, allowing them to develop that would have meant threat, because over time, Iran has been described as a bully, so to speak, in the Middle East. And if you give Iran the capability to develop nuclear bomb capability, then you could then be thinking about the possibility of allies or proxies like Hezbollah and Hamas also having access to nuclear weapons. And if Iran were to be allowed to acquire nuclear weapons, they could very well threaten every country in the Middle East, including Saudi Arabia, UAE, and the rest of them. And that, of course, will not be good for the world. And Americans will also not be very comfortable with that. I think that is one of the reasons, even though they are not talking about it, why the US decide to join hands with Israel.
How is this attack on Iran close to being a deja vu, when we remember that in 2003, I beg your pardon, former President Bush launched what he called a decapitation attack on Iraq. And the accusation was that Iraq was also building up nuclear capabilities. And this was despite the fact that the United Nations Chief Weapon Inspector, Hans Blix, had given Iraq a clean bill of health. And when it was realized or discovered that there was no such thing going on in Iraq, and Bush was asked, how do you justify your onslaught on Iraq? And he simply answered by saying it was better to confront the enemies abroad so that you don't face the consequences at home. So is this another case like that? I stay with you.
Okay, well, I think they're not exactly the same thing. At that time, the U.S. wanted to rein in, the U.S. felt that was an American war. They tried to rein in, what was the name of the president then?
George Bush.
No, the Iraqi,
Saddam Hussein.
So America felt that, yes, they were also becoming very powerful in the Middle East, and they needed to rein them in. Yes, it was discovered later, like we all knew, that there was really no capability, but Iran, from all indication, are itching towards the capability to develop in the Middle East nuclear weapon. And like I said, because of the perpetual conflict.
Okay, let's get Dr. Omale's perspective.
Yeah, there's no question about Iran's determination to produce nuclear weapons and ballistic missiles. In fact, Iran has been boasting about their defense complex. They've been boasting about their researches in manufacturing ballistic missiles that can reach the US and even reach the middle of Israel. So in the case of Iraq, it was not so. But the Iranians do not hide their quest to acquire nuclear weapons. In fact, in the 12-day war that happened sometime last year, some of the sites were actually hit by the B-52 bombers of the Americans. Busting bombs were dropped on some of these sites. So there's no question about that the Iranians are developing nuclear capabilities, and they are not hiding it. And to add to that is that the Iranians have a clear agenda of deviance to the Western world. And you see that they have been one of the sponsors of jihadist movements across the globe, or terrorist groups across the globe. Like he mentioned, they have been the major financiers of Hezbollah. They have been the major financiers of the Yemenis, Houthis, and other groups that have been threatening global peace and security. So with that, you cannot say that you could compare the 2003 invasion of Iraq with what is happening in Iran currently.
The other thing we have to take a look at is the question: how legitimate is it, or was it, that the action was carried out without consultation with the Congress? And America, as bastion of democracy, does things by popular opinion. Not even the citizenry was consulted. So how legitimate?
Well, the issue of legitimacy can raise a lot of issues, but the fact of the matter is that the President of the United States of America is very powerful. Then in terms of strategy, the way and manner the operation was carried out, to say if he has breached the Constitution, it's left for the Congress to look at it. But I know that the Congress, they are talking, and I think the Congress may eventually rectify what is happening.
One of the intentions was to induce a regime change in Iran. So in Iran, you have some persons jubilating in support of the onslaught, while you have some others opposing it. So why the contrasting reactions?
No, of course, it's to be seen. That's what we expected. The regime of Ayatollah Khomeini, or the radical Islamist regime, have their supporters. Those who are the moderates, who want a freer society, have their own supporters. So it's not 100% for either side. So what you're seeing dissenting is that there's a reflection of what the people believe. So the regime change issue was too early for Mr. Trump to have talked about, because changing a regime does not happen because you are bombing the country from the air. You would need to get on the ground. You need to mobilize the people. You mobilize resources. You need to build consensus. Do the people right now have that capacity to confront? Because there's still an establishment force that is in place, very ruthless. That establishment force during the earlier demonstrations killed excess of 10,000 people. So that force is still in place. In fact, now that there's a war, they will have more opportunity to quench any, or to quench any attempt at confronting the system.
The reactions have spilled to other countries, like in Nigeria here. We've witnessed demonstrations in the northern part of the country. What are the security implications?
Okay, the spread is a strategy of Iran, particularly Iran shooting at other countries that are around, launching drone attack and missile attack, is to internationalize the crisis by bringing in other people so that it's a strategy. In Nigeria, it's a serious security concern because from our history and our past experience, when you have issues happening to Islamic nations, Nigerian Muslims respond, right? So now, and talking about Iran particularly, Iran will be very active in Nigeria, even though it's not on the obvious side. They train a lot of Nigerians, they give them scholarship, they go to Iran, they are trained, they provide aid support for organizations and for individuals, they provide financial support, scholarships and all that. So they have a huge following in Nigeria. And those are the people that you see. You saw what happened in Kano. People were protesting the attack, even though it is far away. Then you ask yourself, what is the connection between Nigeria and what is happening there? This link, this feeling of being indebted to Iran, and that now if Iran has an issue, people should raise up their voice. That is the first security implication. That is radicalization and the extremism. Now, what that means immediately for our security is that there are some young people, and those who want to recruit and radicalize young people now have a basis to say, you see what the West is doing, and it's like Nigeria is being at par with the West or something. Come and join us, and there will be justification for joining radical group, Islamist extremists and all that, Boko Haram and the rest of them as well. Now, you also talk about the energy security issue. Some countries, as at this point, are already saying stop exporting petroleum product from our country, like India, for instance, have stopped that product being exported. It means that we're going to begin to have energy security crisis if this doesn't end, because we still import crude. Dangote refinery still import crude. And now that this crisis is going on, the ability to transport, to do this business is curtailed. Then we also talk about Nigerians that are stranded, that could be stranded because of this particular incident that is going on, who might eventually be requiring government to intervene in repatriating them.
Thank you very much for taking time to espouse all that. Dr. Matthew, the reactions at the international level, at the sovereignty level. President Trump is not happy with the UK for not explicitly taking sides with the US in this campaign. Does he have such rights to want to coerce other countries to be on his side, beg your pardon?
No, in this case, it's not the issue of rights now. It's an issue of the transatlantic charter and alliances. The UK and the US have come a long way as Western countries that have been traditional allies. You can imagine Trump's reaction to Spain for criticizing American involvement in this Iran conflict and threatening to cut trade tariff with Spain. So it's not just UK. Trump believes that the US traditional allies should be able to, especially NATO countries, should be able to rally around America at this point in time. And he's not getting the type of support that he thought he was going to get from them. Especially, he feels more disappointed with the UK because the UK traditionally, in 2003, during the Iraq War, the UK participated actively by contributing forces and also participating in the attack. This time around, the UK has been very cautious because the relationship with the U.S., especially under Trump, has not been as cordial as it should have been due to several factors. Don't also forget that the UK is also being very cautious not to be dragged into an avoidable war situation. And probably they felt they were not consulted, just like you said earlier on, before these attacks were carried out. Unlike in the past where the US will galvanize NATO and also other allies to be part of decision making for this type of military adventure. I believe that may be the reason why the UK is very sluggish or for dragging in endorsing this particular campaign.
Right.
So, yeah.
Thank you. Now, gentlemen, the way forward, the way out, do we look in the direction of the UN? Is that the way to go?
Well, some people say that if you analyze the UN current status of the UN, look at this is what you call a toothless bulldog. So how is the UN going to stop the US and Israel? Israel have never really listened. Apart from the resolutions, do they have the capacity to stop the war? Israel have never really had that respect for the United Nations, and America feels that under Trump, America seems to be bigger than the UN itself. So looking in the direction of UN will not be. UN can only issue resolutions, condemnations. It doesn't stop the dropping of bomb. I think what will happen eventually is, because clearly Israel have gotten their own objective for this particular conflict. They've been waiting for it. They have waited for it for long, and the opportunity is here today. And Israel will want to ensure that they completely degrade the capacity of Iran to continue to threaten Israel and the Middle East. And America also have to support their friend Israel, and then also justify why they are there. America cannot pull out now. The question will be, what did you achieve? So before America can then say they are pulling out, there must be that visible achievement that they have achieved. I mean, the objective of completely decapitating Iranian capacity and ability to threaten the neighbor, which means taking out their projectiles, the capacity for them to produce projectiles, and also to develop nuclear bomb. And then I would think that if I were to be the Iranians, there's nothing to lose. It's to seek peace. It's just pride, because your country is being decimated. Every infrastructure is being destroyed. Roads, power infrastructure, communication infrastructure, health, schools. So at the end of the day, if you allow this to continue for another 2 weeks, and Israel is ready to pump in as much, by the way, right now, the air defense system of Iran has been decimated. The naval capability also been decimated. And then it means that Iran will be completely vulnerable to whatever these other countries want to do.
Thank you very much. So,
well, to add to that, I will want to say that Iran is at the receiving end, clearly. They do not have the capacity to withstand the might of the US and Israel. And you can see that just barely 5 days into the war now, Iran have learned a lesson that it is not just about talking tough. When the action starts, you will see the difference. Apart from attacking here and there, it is clear, like the last speaker has said, that most of its naval fleet, most of its air defense system, most of its top echelon of leadership has all been decimated. So it's an unequal war between the mighty and the underdog, and I don't see any possibility of the underdog becoming victorious.
Thank you. We appreciate your perspectives.
Thank you.
Let me start with the one in the suits. Security strategist, Dr. David Okoro. Thank you again for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me.
Then international relations expert, Dr. Matthew Adoyi Obale. Thank you.
Thank you also for having me.
So we've been taking a look at the different angles, different sides of the current skirmishes in the Middle East. Thank you for watching. It's been a special edition of News Eddies dedicated to the raging Middle East crisis. We hope you liked it. From the 1979 revolution to last week's strike, the fault lines remain deep and the consequences global. As the world watches, the region stands at crossroads between escalation and resolution, instability and peace. All sides, every angle, News Eddies. Thanks for watching.